Welcome to the Unriveted podcast, where we dial in on the technology intersections of digital transformation, artificial intelligence, and people. In this podcast, we dial in on our fourth episode of digital transformation and the creation of a centralized data hub. Why are the big box stores, like the mega stores like Target, Walmart, and Amazon, so successful, John?
Well, I'll give you my funny answer. Is it because you can expect more, pay less, save money, and live better with everything from A to Z? See what I did there?
Wow. Maybe I should go into branding and marketing with taglines like that, John? Or no, you?
Yeah, well, I can't say that I can take all the credit for that, and I guess I really can't take any of the credit for that, but I appreciate the high accolades from you, Martin.
Wow.
So, well, let me flip it around and ask you the same question, Martin. So, why do you think stores, like Target, Walmart, Amazon, etc., why do you think they are successful? What's your perspective on that?
John, it's really about as clear as day. It's convenience, simplicity, everything, all you need in one place, perceived value, low cost, easy delivery, right to your door.
Exactly. I agree with everything you said. No disagreement there. So I guess, for our fourth and final episode of this collection around digital transformation, what does that, in your perspective, have to do? How do we take the learning from that and apply it to digital transformation? What does that mean in that regard? I'm interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, I think if you take it completion backwards, you think about what are you trying to achieve? What KPIs are you trying to achieve? How are you going to measure it? And how are you going to watch it and monitor it at the same time? Think of a single pane of glass, a single source of truth. It's a way of presenting and visualizing and driving towards the expected outcome.
Right. Yeah. And I know that, you've used that term around me before, the single pane of glass, having a single source of information. And I've worked for organizations where, I've walked in and I've said, well, where do I go for information on this? Or where do I go for details on that? And sometimes it's like, well, you go here for this, you go here for that, you go here for that other thing, and you go over there and you ask this guy and you give him the secret handshake, blink your eye 3 times, and do a pirouette, and then you'll get the information there. So yeah, there's definitely the benefit from having that single source of truth, the single pane of glass, right? And I think, when you think about it from the digital transformation part, there's also, and we talked about this before, thinking about how the people aspect of the digital transformation, that's the real challenge. The technology, that's not as big of a challenge from my experience. But if you have that single source of truth where everyone in the organization is kind of able to get what they need for what their function is, it also creates that kind of intangible psychological benefit around change management. So it's like, Alice, the CEO, and Bob in the mailroom, to use my 2 favorite examples, they're all kind of they're all using kind of that same single pane of glass. Maybe it shares with them different information. They might not need to know the same thing as everybody else, but it creates this kind of, we're all in this together. We're all part of the digital transformation because we're all utilizing, some component of the same tool. At least that's my perspective.
And that's an interesting perspective, John. If you think about all the places data originates from, where the information gets munged together, refactored, featureized, if you want to call it that, you think about knowledge of this information, governance of this information, and access of it. And having a single pane of glass to help you guide you through that journey would be the nirvana point. And orgs can generate these things, but it's not simple. It's not simple.
Mhm.
You have one big problem. And guess what that one big problem is, John?
You tell me, Martin. I can think of many, but I'm sure you have one that you're hitting at here.
One big problem. It's the problem that I like to talk about a lot, and that's people. People are the problem. Because if you have the wrong people in the place without the right knowledge or the wrong knowledge, those people get in the way of others gaining knowledge.
Correct. And I think, you hit on another, somewhat, I guess, timely-ish topic. Thinking about kind of that central location where, like you said, the people become the problem, not necessarily the technology. But, thinking about what we just went through with the pandemic, and how everyone started working from home or working remotely. People like me have been working remotely for, 8 years. So I was ahead of the curve. But a lot of people were not, in that position. They were going into the office every day. And then all of a sudden they wake up one morning and then they're working from home for the next 2 years. Some people embrace it. Some people didn't. That's not totally the point of what I'm getting at here. But
what are you getting at?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because if you didn't, I could probably build up to it for the next 20 minutes, and we don't have that kind of time. But, having that single source of truth, that single pane of glass, makes it easier for people to understand, the processes, the information they need, the insights they need to do their job. And if you don't have that well defined in that centralized location, that centralized, we'll call it data or information hub, things like that fall apart, and then people don't know what to do.
Sounds like one of these problems where you have too many cooks in a kitchen could spoil the soup.
Too many cooks in the kitchen spoil the soup. I alluded to that at the end of our last podcast of ours. Too many cooks in the kitchen spoil the soup. Everyone kind of wants to build their own way of doing things, but ultimately you're just setting yourself up for failure. I'm not saying there's no flexibility. Again, a centralized data hub doesn't mean that everyone's seeing the same thing when they log into this.
Whoa, John. If a tree falls in the woods and no one's there, does it make a sound?
And I guess you could say similarly, if $100 million is invested in a digital transformation and nobody knows how to use the tools you gave them or where to find the information that they need, was it really worth the investment, or was it a waste of money? To get, philosophical with you.
Wow. I've never been through a scenario like that, John. It seems so zen to join into the thought process of that. What do you think?
I agree. But that might be a topic for an entirely different podcast if you want to get into philosophy. So if you ever want to change the format, let me know, and we can go down that path. So tell me, though, if we continue on in Unriveted, talking about digital insights and the AI world that we live in, what are we going to talk about next time, Martin? Or maybe I should say, who is going to talk for us next time in our next podcast, if you know what I mean.
Don't give it away that easily. My goodness. I think we should go unriveted with ChatGPT. What do you think, John?
I'm looking forward to it. Let's do it.
Yep. With that, till next time, lights out.